My content is for 13 and up, or don't click into the product. As Beyblade Burst is finally coming to an end, let's talk about how this driver may be the biggest threat ending off. Hello everyone, and before we continue with this video, subscribe to the channel with bell notifications on. Now before we plug the store, I gotta give some backstory to this driver. Recently we did host a event on the WBO, and hey, this driver did come in clutch in winning combinations. So it is a very good driver for competitive if you want to use it. And hey, if you want to get this driver, guess what? On our store, which is an optional way to support the channel, you can check out the Ultimate Fusion DX set. We have other bundles and deals with it if you want to get Bearing Drift. And yeah, alright, now the actual discussion. What's good? What's bad? What does it mean for the future ending off? What could it mean for the meta? So starting off with some of the positives, it is probably the most consistent you will ever see a same spin driver to be. So much so that with the recent release of Moment Dash, which mind you is an upgrade to the previous Moments, it does not get a chance to shine because of the fact that BDR just absolutely bodies it in same spin, and it's too good. Now obviously, are there matchups where you could lose with BDR in same spin? Yes, but in a matchup where you're the most optimized as possible, right, it should lean heavily towards BDR. The opposite spin also, I would say, is pretty decent. While it solely depends on if you either tilt and die, or if you tilt and you somehow manage to stay on top and win, opposite spin equalization also is not that bad at all. It does a very solid job, as is expected from a driver that basically combines bearing and drift, two very dominant drivers, and make it into one. Now, let's go over the negatives. One easy to talk about negative, quote-unquote, for this driver or weakness is that the bearings obviously will always vary in free spin, and if you do not keep this properly stored and in check, eventually your bearings can just die. So yes, that is obviously a downfall to this driver. The other part is kind of an easy one, but the driver is pretty easy to KO. And when I say pretty easy to KO, I mean that if we were talking at least same spin, you should have little to no difficulty KOing this driver at all. Now, of course, if we are talking opposite spin for KOing, if you do a tactic where you essentially just light launch it, and obviously an attacker is going out against trying to KO, you could potentially equalize and not get KO'd, but that doesn't work all the time, so that's why I didn't really list it as a positive. But with both the positives and the negatives, what is the actual worry with this other than it's a pretty dominant driver? Seeing with Burst having, from what we know, at least for the rest of the year, it's going to have 2 more releases, which, as we know, is the Burst Spriggan and potentially that Lucifer evolution in December. Either way, the meta is pretty much revolving around this driver. This driver is, it has a place. It has a place. And the question is not, oh, can we beat it? But rather, will the meta become so toxic where there'll just be something that's so safe to use with this driver to a point where maybe banning could be considered? Or will it be tolerable enough? Now that is the question. If you want my opinion, I'm probably going to lean towards, I don't think TT is going to do anything about it, mostly because, again, DB Stadium's their main stadium, and that driver's not really that much of a threat. And also considering, I don't really know if they can really top this. Like, they could just do a normal release of Metal Bearing Drift. Either way, I do think there's nothing that's going to top this that could potentially be worse. But the question of whether or not, you know, maybe it's too much is kind of like the fun debate we can have. And the best part about it is we can only answer once it's done with. That's why I said could potentially be the biggest threat. Now, obviously as it stands right now, I think this is just a solid driver, and the weaknesses make it balanced enough where it can be used, and also the fact that if you do not tune a combo properly, so what tuning is basically when you are assembling a bait properly so it is most stable, and also launching technique, you know, there are things that can make this thing lose. Otherwise, I think it's a tough cookie. So with that being said, in the comment section, what do you think of this driver? Whether you've gone up against it in competitive or for or against it, do you think by the end of it it'll be too much? Do you think you'll still be fine by the end of it? What do you think in the comment section below? But that's where I'm gonna be leaving off with this video, and hey, I just mentioned Burst Spriggan. Whoa, did you know that on our shop, which is an optional way to support the channel, hey, it releases next week, pre-orders, all that stuff ships the following. But there are pre-orders and bundles for Burst Spriggan, an optional way to support the channel again. Let me know your thoughts on this driver. I will make sure to have footage accompanying this, and if I have any extra notes, I will probably do a voiceover. Otherwise, I think I was kind of fair in this one. I wasn't saying this was too much or too little or whatever. I think I try to weigh positives and negatives. So, thank you all for watching. Have a wonderful day, and maybe more videos like this in the future. Maybe. Bye.